So, when you see Americans heading to the polls to vote for president, they're not just casting one vote into a giant national pot. No, it's way more complicated than that. They're actually taking part in 51 completely separate contests, all part of this unique and, let's be honest, often controversial system we call the Electoral College. It's a system that can, and has, given us a president who didn't actually win the most votes. Understanding it is absolutely key to understanding American politics.
And that brings us to this huge, kind of baffling question at the heart of American democracy. How is it even possible for a candidate to get millions more votes from the people and still end up losing the presidency? It feels like it shouldn't work that way, right? But it's not a mistake in the system. It's actually how the system was designed to work.
And believe me, this isn't just some weird theoretical thing. It's happened 5 times in US history. Take a look at this table. What's really wild is how that gap between the popular vote winner and the election winner has just exploded in recent years, hitting almost 3 million votes back in 2016. So what is going on here? How does this keep happening?
To figure this all out, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to cover the basic rules of the game. Then, we'll take a look back in time to see why this system was even created. After that, we'll get into the modern controversies, explore a potential path to change, and finally, we'll look at how all this plays out in those super important midterm elections.
All right, let's dive right into the rules of the game, the how of it all. Here's the first thing you need to know. When you vote for president, you're not actually voting directly for your candidate. You're voting for a group of people, called electors, who have promised to vote for that candidate.
Okay, so the big number you always hear about is 538. That's the total number of electors up for grabs. And no, that's not a random number. It's the 435 members of the House of Representatives, plus the 100 senators, and then you add 3 electors for Washington, D.C., thanks to the 23rd Amendment. And out of those 538, there is one number that matters more than any other, 270. That is the magic number. A candidate has to win at least 270 electoral votes to become president. If nobody hits that number, things get really interesting, and the House of Representatives gets to decide.
So, how do we get from 538 total votes to this map right here? Well, every state gets a number of electors equal to its number of people in Congress. That means its number of representatives, which is based on population, plus its 2 senators. This is why you see big states like California and Texas with a huge pile of electoral votes, while smaller states are guaranteed to get at least 3. So how does a candidate actually win those electors? Well, in 48 states plus DC, it's a winner-take-all system. It doesn't matter if you win the state by 1 single vote or by 1 million votes. Your candidate gets all of that state's electoral votes. It's like winning a poker hand. You get the whole pot. Only 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, do it differently. They split their votes up.
Okay, so that's the how. But what about the why? Why on earth was this system created in the first place? To answer that, we've got to jump in a time machine and go all the way back to 1787.
You have to put yourself in their shoes. The framers, guys like Alexander Hamilton, were really wrestling with this new idea of a democracy. They wanted the people to have a say, for sure, but they were also pretty skeptical of pure, direct democracy. They pictured a system where these electors, chosen by the people, would act as a sort of wise filter, using their own judgment to pick the absolute best person for the job. So the Electoral College was really a massive compromise. It was trying to solve a bunch of problems at once. It was designed to balance the power between the big states and the small states, to make sure the president wasn't just a puppet of Congress, and to act as a buffer against what they worried could be mob rule or foreign meddling. But we have to be honest about the context of the time. The system was also deeply shaped by the institution of slavery. The infamous 3/5 compromise counted each enslaved person as 3/5 of a free person when it came to representation. This gave the southern states way more power, more seats in the House, and because of that, more electoral votes than they would have had based on their voting population alone. Okay, enough history. Let's fast forward to today. What does all this actually mean for modern elections? This is the so what, the real-world consequences and criticisms of the system as it works right now. Because of that winner-take-all system we talked about, presidential campaigns don't treat all states equally. Not even close. Instead, they pour basically all of their time, money, and attention into a small handful of swing states or battleground states. Places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Arizona, where the race is super close.
And that laser focus on just a handful of states has some major ripple effects across the country. First, it makes it possible to win the White House without winning the popular vote. Second, if you live in a safe state, one that always votes Republican or Democrat, you might feel like your vote doesn't even matter, which can hurt turnout.
And finally, it means the issues that are important to voters in swing states get way more attention from the candidates.
So all these issues have people asking, can we change this? But amending the Constitution, it's nearly impossible. So opponents of the Electoral College came up with a pretty clever workaround that doesn't require a constitutional amendment at all.
It's called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Think of it like a pact or a club that states can join. By joining, a state agrees to give all of its electoral votes to whichever candidate wins the most individual votes across the entire country, regardless of how their own state voted. And as you can see on this map, a number of states are already on board. But here's the key. The whole thing is designed to stay dormant, to not activate, until the states that have signed on collectively hold at least 270 electoral votes, that magic number you need to win the presidency. So how would this actually work? It's a pretty simple four-step process. First, a state's legislature passes a law to join the compact. Then everybody just waits until enough states have joined to clear that 270 electoral vote hurdle. Once that happens, the compact activates, and in the very next presidential election, every single state in the compact gives its electoral votes to the national popular vote winner, which would guarantee that person becomes president.
And while that's all focused on the big presidential race, there's another huge election cycle we need to talk about, the midterms. Because even when the presidency isn't on the ballot, the balance of power in Washington can shift dramatically.
You can almost think of the midterms as a report card on the president. 2 years into their term, they give voters all across the country a chance to weigh in, to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the president's performance and their party's agenda by voting for members of Congress.
And when you look at the history here, the trend is, it's pretty staggering. The party that controls the White House almost always loses seats in the House of Representatives during the midterms. In fact, it's happened in 20 of the last 22 midterm elections. That's a powerful pattern.
So when we look ahead to 2026, this history is basically a massive headwind for whichever party is in the White House. Control of Congress will probably come down to things like the president's approval rating, and crucially, which party can get its voters excited enough to show up when the presidency itself isn't on the line.
And that really brings us to the big final question. We've got a presidential election system with rules that were written in the 1700s. And we've got this midterm election dynamic that seems to follow a predictable historical trend. So as we look toward 2026 and beyond, we have to wonder, will these old patterns hold true, or is the intense political division in America today writing a whole new set of rules for an unpredictable future?
This is the brief on USA Infinity. They make it really clear that if a video blew your mind or maybe just hit close to home, you shouldn't just scroll past. That feeling, that's your cue to hit subscribe and officially join the community. It's about making sure they can keep uncovering these incredible stories all across the states. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.